Well, hi everyone, my name's Chrissy Fitzgerald. I'm a psychic life coach, and today I just want to talk a little bit about fear of change. I think everybody has a lot of fear that comes up whenever things change in their life. I know I personally don't cope with change at all. I'm a very routine person, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there too that feel exactly the same way as I do. That's why I feel this video I need to talk about change, because it is something that really scares a lot of people, and that can be, changing a job, changing your whole life sometimes. Like I personally went through a separation with my husband a year ago, and that's been a huge change in my life and my children's life as well, and that's not been an easy road to deal with. And I mean, people have many changes, even just a job change can be very traumatic for a lot of people. As much as they're ready for that move, it's still very, it's almost like you're going into the unknown. So it's actually brings up a lot of fear in your body, and it can actually be very scary because you don't know what the outcomes are going to be. So change, I think, to everybody is always a lot to deal with. I personally am a very routine person. I leave at the same time in the morning, and I like to go the same way to school, and I walk the same ways, and I like to do those sort of things. And when things change in those patterns, it makes me very unsettled. And I'm sure there's people out there who have their little routines as well, and little things, and when those things get disrupted, it actually does bring up a lot of fear in people. And again, it's that fear of the unknown and fear of the outcomes and what's going to happen and where am I going to go. And I think the way of dealing with fear of change is that you've actually got to not get too far not too far ahead of yourself. I think if you get too far ahead of yourself and you start making plans and thinking, well, what if this happens and what if that happens, your poor old mind gets very jumbled up, and you actually can't think straight. So you've kind of got to almost pull yourself back and try and focus on, okay, this change is happening, it's unavoidable, but I have to deal with it. So there's got to be ways to deal with it, and sometimes you've just got to accept the change. I think it's in accepting the change that it actually makes for a bit of a smoother transition as well. So, it's funny, because if you look back at your life and you think of times where you've had, it can be small changes, it can be huge changes in your life, you can look back and you can actually see that those changes actually happened for a reason. And at the time, it's very hard to see those reasons, because it's, I've talked a lot about the higher mind, but the higher mind can see a lot of things that we, as I said, on this 3D level, we can't grasp and get our head around. But I think it was Eckhart Tolle said, at the end of your life, it's like having lived a beautiful tapestry quilt that's made up of patches. So each patch is each little section of your life. So, we end up down here, obviously, in death, but our life begins up here on the quilt. And all along the way are these little patchwork sections of the quilt that make up your life story. And this is where you can look back at your life and you can go, oh, now I know why that happened. That happened so I'd end up here. Or that change happened back then so that I'd learn and grow from it, and I would end up taking that new job, or I moved to a different place. So looking back at the tapestry, I guess, or patchwork quilt of your life, you can see why those things happen. They're very difficult and they can be scary at the time. I know that, and having lived through things like that myself, I know that it can be very, very overwhelming. But look, I think change is scary. Yes, it is, and we all have to deal with it. But I think the biggest thing with change is to embrace it and know that the changes come along for a reason. And you might not realize what that reason is now, and I know myself, I never know why things happen, and I don't deal with change well at all. I'm very routine, and I'm a real creature of habit, and I love just my life being the same. But things will come into your experience, and this is the same thing with energy, that bump, and affect your direction and your path. So you've got to kind of accept that these things are going to happen to you, that things are going to come in and affect you as well, that aren't always under your control. And it's about that feeling out of control that actually puts that fear in people. So the biggest thing you can do is learn to accept change. Yes, it's scary, but try to accept it and know that the changes come for a reason, that it's leading you somewhere, and in time you will look back and you will realize that that change had to happen. Anyway, that's just a small video about fear of change, and it's not an easy thing to deal with, but just try to accept it. And anyway, see how that goes. Bye.